Hello once again everyone and welcome back on another episode at the Cusp of Freedom where we'll be discussing why and how we become who we are and shining some light on our perspectives, the challenges that we've gone through in order to get to where we are so that you can see what it takes to be like one of us or better, and so that you understand what it takes to be better than us. So without further ado, we'll jump straight into it. Today I have a very special guest on this podcast. I'll let her introduce herself.
Sure. Hi, my name is Christina. I am the Chief Technical Officer Lead Developer for a small firm that makes websites for lawyers. We make winning websites for winning lawyers, and I'm here in Panama.
Nice. So welcome today, and I guess we can start off with why did you decide to become a lead tech officer?
Sure. Well, first off, I started working for Conversations Digital as a contractor. And so I've been, as a developer, very used to working with different contracts, having to manage different companies. And so they had just asked me to go full in this year. So the company itself is remote. So I would say that I was inspired outside of the pandemic, to do remote work at a level where I had the ability to travel and also work wherever, as long as there was a Wi-Fi connection, right? So I was always kind of like looking towards having a more full-time position in a remote setting, rather than managing a bunch of different contracts.
Okay. Well, let's take a step back to earlier in your life, say your childhood. Did you have any travel experiences when you were younger?
I did. It's a great question. So I am a military brat. I actually lived in Panama when I was here, middle school, and then after that, we moved to Italy for 4 years, and then after that, I lived in Puerto Rico. So I had lived overseas the majority of my tween to teenager life. So I always was exposed to this really magical world, not living in the States, I guess, right? And then I came back to the States for university, and then from there, stateside. But it wasn't until, working towards these goals of having like a remote job that, I'm kind of now living my dream again of being overseas.
Would you say that having those childhood experiences of traveling changed your perspective of the world?
Oh.
And would you say that
Absolutely.
perspective change had like a ripple effect onto why you decided to look for remote jobs later in life?
Yeah, you nailed it. I would say that I'm very grateful to my parents for having, it was me and my brother and sister. We all traveled together as a family and got to know the world, and it's like a different cultural, it's a different type of education, right? It's a cultural education. You learn so much about the different languages, and I'm gonna say a word in Spanish, costumbres, customs. And I think that, in my opinion, the people who I've met in life that have traveled are like just way more open, and I think that there needs to be more connectivity between different countries and different communities in general. I think that it would benefit all of us if we could all get access to travel and doing these things abroad. I understand that accessibility is an issue, right?
Yeah.
So
going back to your childhood life when you were traveling and getting these different experiences from different cultures or whatnot, what did you want to be when you grew up? Did you know that you wanted to I don't think you knew that you wanted to get a remote job. What was your dream, and what skills do you think you had as a child that made you feel like you could accomplish that dream?
So I think when I was in Italy is beautiful, right? I think I was very convinced that I was going to go back to Europe. I was 100% sure that I was going to go back to Europe and just go and live there. I wanted to actually work in politics. I wanted to do international relations, but I did go to school for communications with a major in media production. So I did TV and film production. I was always kind of like a tech kid. So at the end of the day, I think the idea of being, to go back to your question, I wanted to be an interpreter. I wanted to be a translator. like on an international level, like UN style.
Okay.
That was my idea.
Wow.
So.
Okay. And what skills, I guess, did you have, or did you identify as a kid that made you want to do that? Is it like being able to communicate with people? Is it the love of learning different languages?
Yeah, I would say that my curiosity always rang
okay.
true, right? I was a very curious person, and so learning different languages, learning different customs, also just like having the confidence, because I did learn Spanish when I was in Panama. I was enrolled in a bilingual school, and living in Italy after being there for 4 years, it was a challenge, but I did learn Italian. So I was kind of like a sponge already. And I feel like that boosted my confidence in thinking, oh yeah, I could do this. I could do this like in my adult life. I could continue doing these things in my adult life.
It's interesting you mentioned curiosity, because I feel like when you go, like when I look back in my childhood days, some people were like really scared to ask questions and not then look dumb for the questions that they ask. But how much do you think curiosity played a role in how much you've learned and how much your confidence, and like why and like I guess why did you not let what other people think affect the questions that you ask, or
No, it's a great question. I mean, I would say that, of course, I felt insecure being the outsider of a different, culture or country, and I had to make a lot of mistakes. I would say that in my adulthood and after lots of therapy, I'm more comfortable making a fool of myself, right? All to say, hold on, we should probably pause this real quick. We'll let it play out. He's yelling. And then I'll re-answer the question.
I'm about to say something.
Relax.
No,
Okay. All right, so the question was
what curiosity, and why didn't you let what other people's perspectives affect the way you ask questions?
Sure. So I would say that my curiosity, I always want to nurture that inner child, right? But I did have to make a fool out of myself a lot, and I still do to this day. I would say that I did struggle a little bit with being the outsider to every experience, not being like a local or a native. But over time, and with therapy, just like figuring out, like being comfortable with myself and knowing that, hopefully, I want to believe in humanity, but with the help of nice and kind people, that makes the experience all the better. So just trying to approach things in a positive way, and then also understanding that, not everyone's going to be happy with my presence. So, and that's okay. That's okay. I do not have to win anybody over. It's not my job.
That's true. That's good. So, looking back at your experience in college, you said you studied film,
Yes.
and so you wanted to do politics or translate languages when you were younger.
Yeah.
What changed between that younger age and by the time you got to college, and why did you choose to pursue film production?
Ooh, these are tough questions. All right, so I think I was not really sure what I wanted to major in, to be honest. And I knew that I had, I spoke Italian, I spoke Spanish. I thought, ooh, what's something that I could use these languages, and they can be, and I guess I was being a techie person, I was interested in being able to use that skill set and media. There's all forms of media. You can do it in any different language, I guess that was my thought. I actually don't really have, I think I'm part of the millennial generation that was like, I don't know what I'm gonna do at school, but I'm gonna go in this direction and see how it goes, maybe I'm not as devout as some other people were with their majors, but I honestly don't know. I always carried those cultural experiences and my language skill set with me in whatever profession.
Well, it sounds like you went to college to pursue something you were passionate about. Like
Yeah, I was passionate about
media
media.
and film production is not like something everybody just like wakes up and decides to go to college for, or your parents would be happy for you to go to college.
Yeah, my parents actually, my father's a dentist, my mother's an engineer, so they couldn't relate to my experience. But, you have to be a pioneer every once in a while, right?
Were there any challenges when you, traveled young to different countries? Like, was it challenging to change schools so frequently?
Yes, it was. And then I got used to it. I think all of us military brats relate to this experience of having very short-term friendships and building intimacy really quickly. You always go in asking, oh, what's your dad do? How long are you here? So then we could kind of manage how the friendships would play out. Granted, when I was in Panama, I went to a local school and I needed a tutor because most of my classes were in Spanish. So I did need that extra help. I am not a native Spanish speaker, although my mother is Latina. So over time, I think it got easier to be the new kid on the block, and it just made me stronger as a person. Again, like how I said before, I'm not out here to prove anything to anybody. They don't have to accept me, or they can, and hopefully there is a connection that forms.
That's pretty deep. And how about your college experience? You said you went just passionate about movie and film production, but was it challenging going through college? And if you could go back to college, what would you do better?
That's a great question. So I would say that my college experience was very American. I went to Florida State, and we had the whole football thing. So I kind of felt like after having been overseas for so long, I was kind of getting reacquainted because culture shock, right? I didn't bring that up before, but culture shock is a thing. So I was experiencing that a lot, very rapidly, and moving all the time. We had to limit the kind of things that would bring with us, right?
Yeah.
So going to Florida State, I would say, was like me being reintegrated into American society. I think that, it was great that my brother and sister were also there, so I had a support system. But I don't know, I guess the only challenging thing was just to get the good grade. and make, and also just expose myself to different activities. So one thing that got me, I wanted to actually be a news anchor.
Okay.
I wanted to do the talking head news thing, broadcast journalist. And I got involved with the college radio station. And so eventually I became, I was part of the news department. I was the news director in my senior year. But I got involved with announcing, doing DJ stuff, right? Super fun. And my love of music I didn't mention this before, but I'm very passionate about music. And I also played in the band, and I know I'm digressing a little bit here, but there's just so much, there were a lot of experiences that happened in college. So it's just hard to kind of summarize that really quickly.
Okay. So after college, was it challenging getting a job with that major?
I would say it put, honestly, if you're ever looking for a job, it's all about who you know. So through the FSU alumni, I was able to acquire an internship that developed into a paid internship. But yeah, I would say it was challenging. I was lucky enough to get this production assistant job after doing 2 years of interning in Washington, D.C.
2 years? 2 months or 2 years?
I'm sorry, 2 summers.
Okay.
During the summers, sorry. So I interned in DC 2 summers in a row. And then from there, got my first job in Wilmington, North Carolina, which is, at the time, was well known for doing Dawson's Creek, One Tree Hill. There was also, when I was working at this company, Legion Productions, we did deliverables for Eastbound and Down, the HBO show, so stuff like that, But I did get laid off because the recession hit, and that was 2009. I think it was March. And so someone who's fresh out of college is just I was shattered. I was like, what am I gonna do? Because it's either move to LA, move to New York, or DC, or move to where the film industry is booming, right? So So I had some decisions to think about at that point in time.
Interesting. That sounds like a very challenging time to be alive. There's a recession. You're majored in film production, and you have a passion for traveling, but you have to be in person to work. So how did you work that out? Like, it sounds very challenging.
So, after a little while, I realized I didn't really want to be on my feet for 12 hours a day, because that is a production day, is 10 to 12 hours. And, I had some good times, but I had to pivot. I knew that something had to change. And so I didn't get to the career that I introduced myself as now until, it took years to get to where I am now. I was waitressing. I had mentioned to you previously, I was a government contractor for a couple of years, which was cool, because that job did let me travel. I traveled 75% of the time all over the U.S.
Oh, I was about to say, outside the U.S. or the government?
No.
Okay.
It was in the States, but, I was 24, 25 at the time, and I did not have a social life. I was just like living in hotels, and it was cool. Don't get me wrong. I got to see a lot of the United States, but I knew that I wanted something different, stability-wise. I was like seeking stability.
Yeah.
And a relationship brought me to Philadelphia, and through my connections, again, the connection, people,
Network.
Talk to your people, network. Don't be afraid to ask for things. And I got an internship working as an apprentice at a small web development firm, and I basically, through their mentorship and, teaching myself, learned how to do back-end and front-end code. I think most of us millennials know how to do HTML,
Yeah.
so it wasn't, I had a GeoCities site back in the day. I don't know if you're familiar with that.
I think.
So, I wanted to apply myself, and I did do, while I was working as a government contractor for a couple of years, I went to community college and did a couple courses in business management. I did some front-end languages as well. So I was kind of thinking maybe, going in the direction of being a developer. Oh, this is what you asked me before. If I were to go back to college, what would I do? I would have majored in computer science. There it is. I had a moment there. I was like, wait a minute. I would say that I was slowly trekking. Like I even built a business plan for my own company. It was called Ninja Fly Media, to do like marketing and digital development for or consultations for companies. So it was like things that were, I was stacking my card or my deck, but I wasn't quite sure that I would go in the front end developer direction, but it did come to fruition.
Yeah.
I would say I was a full stack developer for a little while, but then I loved the front end more.
Like most developers.
Yeah. So, but in the web development realm, just because I like helping people, I'm passionate about helping people, and young entrepreneurs. I was a young entrepreneur myself. I freelanced for a long time, and one of my side hustles was being a DJ. So while I was doing all this, I was DJing on the side to get extra income. So,
Wow. Speak a little bit on that experience, because I feel like a lot of people have a passion in music, similar like you, and DJing is one of those things that I think it's hard to get in, or hard to be, or to see yourself successful as a DJ.
there are a lot of people who do it.
So what made you go in with your passion, and was it like, how did you get started with the DJ part? Like, was it challenging?
Yes, it was. So when I lost my job in North Carolina, I had already bought like a couple of turntables and was like, hey, let me just try this thing as a hobby. But then I realized there was a need for it. People were like, oh, I heard that I was practicing first before going out in public. But through my connections, my first gig was the Cheese Sandwich Film Festival. Very cool. And then eventually from there, someone saw me and they were like, hey, we're doing an event at a bar downtown, Odessa. We'd love for you to try, it was like a test, who could take the Wednesday night slot. So me and my friend who did visuals, we just were like a tag team duo, and then from there, like it's just the support of other women actually.
Ripple effect.
Yeah, ripple effect. And honestly, for a while, I was like the only female DJ in the city. So I was like, what?
And what city was this?
Wilmington, North
Wilmington,
Carolina.
still in Wilmington.
Yeah.
Wow, I thought you went to Philly.
I did go to Philly afterwards. I was stopped in Maryland.
Okay.
Stopped in Maryland before going to Philly.
Okay.
But that's all part of the change, right? And I want to say that I'm going to applaud myself a little bit, but I helped bring some women up to also just to have more access to that world. Because
And you're inspiring more people to know that they can do it.
yeah, totally, they can do it. DJing's tough, like you said. There's like it's like a huge sea of people wanting to do the same thing. So you just have to have a lot of confidence in yourself and be really good at branding and marketing. Yeah, you have to hype yourself up.
What you got in college, I think.
Yeah, all those experiences, right? Social media didn't pop until after I left college. But I think a lot of us millennial Gen Zers, we teach ourselves these things like on the go.
Yeah, for sure.
So, yeah.
I never really got to know what you did as a media or film productionist. So for anyone watching this that does want to do a film production, what should they expect from their job and like?
Sure. Just expect you need to learn how to edit. You need to learn, like, I'm talking like bottom of the barrel jobs, being a production assistant, knowing how to run sound, being available, being attentive. It's kind of like being a media waitress. Depends. You need to know how to wrap cables. Wrapping cables is really, really important.
Very, very difficult job.
I kid you not. That is the one thing. If you don't know how to wrap cables and your producer is on set, they'll just walk you out. Like, yeah, it's like make yourself available, make yourself valuable. Be very polite to everybody. Niceness to get you further, right? But I would say just be prepared for those 10 to 12 hour long days, and know that if you are looking to be a producer, there is a track, there is a hierarchy. But as someone who didn't move past the production assistant level because I said this isn't for me anymore, just the tips I can give you is just learn how to wrap cables. That's number one.
I was not expecting that.
Because you got to go in and out. I don't know if you know how to wrap a cable. If we have a cable, I'll teach you guys. But yeah, it's surprisingly a really valuable skill.
Man, very technical. So after you did, or while you were doing DJing, and you were stacking up all these skills to build your portfolio so that you had the flexibility to go into software if possible. When did your journey in the software or technical space begin, and how challenging was it to maintain that role?
So it wasn't until I moved to Philly, that was in 2013, when my friend introduced me to her friend who had it was like a web design, web development business, and that's
Fun.
it was again through the connections. I would say it was very challenging because I wasn't like in a structured school or class, and I had to do a lot of self teaching. It wasn't until probably like the second year that I really was getting it, and the one thing you have to, and also the way you think about code, right? It's very logical.
Yeah.
I was not a very logical person. I'm a very big idealist dreamer type, right? So I had to break out of that mentality in order to be a programmer. And I think that was very challenging for me, and I didn't realize that would be a part of my experience.
Okay.
And then, you just have to be patient, because honestly, until you get the exposure to XYZ problem, you're not going to know how to solve it. Write notes down so that way you have shortcuts and short codes to like reflect on for, if you're good, usually people document, but sometimes you don't, you forget or whatever, but then you can go back to those problems and then solve them quicker next time.
Yeah.
And also being really good at deciphering information on the internet. So a lot of bad information on Stack Overflow or wherever you're getting your information.
Don't go for Stack Overflow like that.
Well, the thing is that you can upvote or download, right?
That's true.
So there's some people out there that we love all our moderators. Thank you very much. making sure that there's good information out there. You just have to know how to like be good at doing search queries, right?
Yeah.
To find the problem and isolate the issue, right? I think
That's about it.
those are the two things that I would say is learning how to find good information and then also just like logging all the things that you've done in the past so you can just kind of get to those, solve those problems quicker.
That's very, very good advice. As a software developer, I would definitely second that. So I guess how long did it take you to study, like from stacking up those skills to your years of experience where you felt comfortable? How long did it take you to feel comfortable in code? And yeah.
So I would say that my experience has been very fluid and it's fluctuated up and down because the company I worked for had a custom CMS, and then eventually WordPress became king.
Yeah.
And so then I didn't really need that skill set for like with PHP. It was just like WordPress. Yeah, WordPress, PHP or whatever, right? Or like there is PHP and then like WordPress code. So I would say that it took me, I felt comfortable at year 5. So, and even then, tech evolves.
Yeah.
Google pushes us all the time.
It does.
So you have to just do your homework. And I stepped out doing freelance outside of working for this firm. And so not only was I doing code and stuff, I was consulting clients on how to be a digital brand or how they wanted to do their website or whatever. You have to go out there and learn all the different platforms and different methods, trial and error, but I would say year 5.
Nice.
Yeah.
I feel like you've done so much. How was your freelancing?
trying.
How was your freelancing experience? It seems like you used some of your college skills to do freelancing while you were learning this other skill. That was, man, you've done so much. So yeah, how did your freelance experience go, and what was the most challenging part of it?
So I would say, when I did TV production, my boss bought me the Adobe Suite, and I got to keep it. So I learned how to do Photoshop and Illustrator on the job. So I took that skill set with me to other places, and I would say when the web development firm I worked for, they actually had a down period, and that happens. And in that down period, I was like, you know what? I'm gonna work for myself. I'm gonna figure this out. And I did a Shopify site for a friend, so I know a little liquid. But yeah, it was just people trusting me with their business, and I had a lower rate for sure, and then eventually I learned my value, and I had probably I can't remember how many clients, but definitely 2 a year rotating outside of, and then the firm that I worked for came back into play, so I was doing part-time there and part-time my own business. So it's tough to manage your own business. As a freelancer, you have to do all the invoicing, you have to do all the communication, you have to spec out the project, and then you have to do the work too. So yeah, I would say that it's just been a culmination of just believing in myself, I guess, and trying to use these skill sets to my advantage.
And it sounds like you're also very good at prioritizing, because it seems like you have a lot on your plate.
Yeah.
This whole time you've just been doing all these things. I think it takes a lot of focus to get to where you are.
Thank you.
And so when you started working for this tech company and they had a downtime,
Yeah.
were you internationally remote or were you nationally remote in the United States?
I was stateside, yeah.
Okay.
I was stateside and I was remote stateside, yeah.
Okay, so when did you start becoming internationally remote? And do you think there's a bigger benefit to being internationally remote than nationally remote?
I guess that's a good question. So first question, I became internationally remote, I guess 2022.
Okay.
I did come here to Panama over Christmas. Unfortunately, I got COVID, and so I had to stay here. I couldn't fly back to the States. And that's what inspired me to come back, because I did fortunately bring my laptop, and I was able to work remotely, and I was like, oh my gosh, you know what? I think this can work. So I was inspired in that moment. Thanks, COVID. From there, I mean, the one thing I really enjoyed about being remote nationally is I could spend more time with my mom, I could spend time with my dad, I was way more flexible, and you know, my family is important to me, and so being able to have that flexibility in order to help them out with whatever, you know.
What's the downside?
The downside is, I don't know if there is a downside.
Everything is
I
so
think,
expensive.
you know, it's just a different lifestyle, right? You're working, sometimes you're just like, you don't want to turn into a recluse, you know, you don't want to be a hermit, but I think that you do have to force yourself to go out into the world a little bit more because you are constantly, you know, indoors or whatnot. And for me personally, I need 2 monitors to work.
Yeah.
I haven't really found a solution. I've seen some of those things that you can like put on your laptop and it opens up, but that to me is the workstation is the downside.
Okay.
Because I need my workstation to be, you know, I need a little bit of real estate to work and not, I can't go to a cafe. I need privacy. I need secure networks, you know. If they have the MiFi in the States, you know, or you can have your own like little, that's the safest way to do it. But like, you know, when you're dealing with, you know, I don't deal with HIPAA, but for example, if you're doing HIPAA clients, you have to have that security. And so I think that is the downside to having a remote life because you just can't plug into just any Wi-Fi.
Yeah, that's
I'm
true.
sorry, and if you don't know that as a developer, then I don't know if I want to work with you.
Yeah,
but,
that's true. That's very true.
So
So, do you feel like your childhood experience of like always changing locations helped you adapt a lot, like in your adulthood?
yes, I would say that that is one of my strengths is my adaptability or ability to adapt. I think sometimes it's a struggle for people if they're not used to it. But that you know, practice over time, getting comfortable with being vulnerable and making a fool out of yourself occasionally, you know, that's all part of the human experience. So, but yeah, absolutely, 100% being. I am the queen of small talk at this point in my life.
That's a pretty good thing to be queen of. You don't want to talk a lot, you want to walk.
Maybe. I don't know. Some people don't like small talk, but I like, you know, being able. I think again, curiosity. I always had a natural, sensibility to tap into, you know, like asking questions that lead you to a path, and then somebody opens up. Like I've been told that I make people feel comfortable, and I think that is indicative of living in different cultures and knowing the nuances of different cultures, and being open to that. You know, can't always be the loud American. You kind of have to be chill sometimes. So.
Well, now that we've shined some light on why and how you became the chief executive officer at your company, actually I didn't even ask you what's the most challenging part of doing that.
Chief technical officer. But
technical
yeah,
officer,
I'm like, I'm not the executive, but sorry, come again?
What's like the most challenging aspect of your job? Like, what does your daily job entail?
Okay.
Do you see yourself doing this job for the next 5 to 10 years? And what are the most challenging aspects of it? And why do you see yourself doing it for this long?
So, these are all great questions. I do see myself being in this position for the next 5 years. What's wonderful is that I'm kind of dubbed the strategist. Like, I love problem solving. You have to love problem solving if you're in this industry, people. So, you know, I am like the tech wizard of the team. People come to me with their tech problems and they're like, solve this for me or figure this out. And so it keeps it interesting. And I do work with clients occasionally, but it's nice to just kind of be behind the scenes. And we all communicate through Slack. We all have different communication styles, right? So I think that can be a little challenging for me sometimes. Like, you know, I am the only developer, so I feel a little lonely. Like, I'm not gonna be scrimming with other people, you know? It's just by myself. I'm by myself, and like, it's fun. I love my lead designer. She's also very knowledgeable in like front-end languages, so we can jam. But being the only developer on the team does carry a lot of weight on my shoulders too, right? But I think that's the fun part. But communication style, right? Because I don't always want to like instant message someone. What's great about Slack, I love the voice note tool.
Oh, the huddle.
the huddle's great too. Not everyone wants to huddle though, so the voice note tool is great. And so just being flexible to people's communication styles is very important in a remote setting. Fortunately, Conversations Digital is really fun. We're a fun little team, and we have like social events that we do, like an end of the year party, and we just all jump up on Zoom, and are a little more relaxed. So yeah, I would say I could see myself doing this job for several years. Everybody is very supportive. Without letting the cat out of the bag, the CEO is planning to go to Europe and work remotely from Europe. So, I mean, they're very encouraging in that sense, with the whole remote, nomadic, digital nomad lifestyle.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So you enjoy feeling burnt out? This is the first time I've heard a developer say
I'm
that.
not really excited about the burnout part, but just being able to manage, all my little departments and stuff, and being able, like I was saying before, once you figure out that one problem, then you know how to find a solution, and then, documentation is everything. So I want to get to a place where things are like chill, but being new on the team, it's definitely, they've never had a chief technical officer on their team. So yeah, hopefully my position helps our team grow in exponential ways.
Wow, I hope so too. I think you're really good at multitasking. From everything you said, you're like an exceptional multitasker.
Thank you.
And it seems like the reason why you enjoy being burnt out sometimes is because you're on an incredible team that makes you feel like a family, it seems like. And I think that's also a very critical part for anyone that gets into tech and wants to work for any tech companies, that the team that you get hired on is very critical to, like, it's 40% of your day basically, right? Or your life. It's very critical that you feel like you're part of something, bigger than yourself.
Yeah, as corny as it sounds, teamwork makes the dream work. That is definitely our motto, and we all pitch in. Everyone has their hands in different departments, and we lift each other up and our hands on deck when things are going down. So it's a blessing. I definitely feel like I put this wish and manifested this into the universe. I'm gonna get all woo woo, but it was my roommate who introduced me to the CEO of this company. So again,
Network.
Yeah. Don't be afraid to ask.
That's
so
good advice.
you can get ahead. So yeah.
Man, so now that we've mentioned, I guess we've mentioned why and how she became who she is. Let's dive a little bit into your life philosophy to see what your perspective is like. So is there any life philosophy or code that you live by on a daily basis?
Ooh. Oh my goodness. I feel like this year has been like, just keep going, keep trying, make mistakes, and lick your wounds. I guess my life philosophy is chase your dreams. Like, if there's anything that I've learned about myself and I've proved to myself, is that when I say I'm gonna do something, I do it. Make goals. You have one big goal, break it down. Figure out a way to get there. Life's too short. Life's too short to just it's good to dream, but it's also very important to make those plans actionable.
Not everybody has the engineering mindset you have. Document your solutions, break them down into multiple different problems that you can have multiple solutions
Right.
for.
That's a special thing I bring to the world.
So would you say everybody should just learn Agile first before they even start?
I don't know how to answer that question, but I think what you're naming for me is a business, like an organizational mindset. Right?
Yeah, like how do you get that?
I don't get that. Oh my gosh, I don't know. You just have to be born into my blood. I don't know. I'm just kidding. I think it's just trial and error, right? When things are messy and you are struggling to get through the mess, like things are stagnant. At least that's been my experience. Is like, I think like my life philosophy is just more about believing in yourself and being patient with yourself too. There's chase happiness, chase happiness, and apply yourself, give yourself a chance. Give yourself a chance to fail or succeed, right?
For some people that are in situations where they find it hard to give themselves a chance or to believe in themselves due to the way they were raised up, maybe, we all have different backgrounds, different upbringings, different parents or whatnot, different traumas. For someone that's in the worst of these situations, what advice would you give him or her to get out of those situations if they have an opportunity? Say, for example, especially if you're like an American, because I don't think there's any excuse if you're an American.
I think you get a mentor. Look in your industry. Get online. All those programmers are online anyways. There's a lot of cool Slack communities. I am part of this one called Techeria, which is a bunch of Latinx developers. And also I am a part of a group called Out in Tech because I identify as queer. So, there are communities online and there are ways to get lifted up through mentorship. And I think you learn by example, right?
Yeah.
You imitate through example. And if you have that mentorship, I think that could be helpful.
Nice. Now, what is mentorship? Do you feel like somebody has to be like 10 steps ahead of you, or is one step ahead of you better? Like, good enough to get you there?
I think that's a good question. I think maybe one step ahead is fine. I think you want to be with someone who's a little more experienced because they could give you all the shortcuts.
Yeah.
And that's really nice because, I can speak from my experience. I've had to, I've been up against a lot of hard walls, and I wish I had some mentorship just to Tetris my way out of it. But that's okay, and that's made me who I am now, like a very resilient human being.
Yeah, you're resilient indeed. Well, it's been an honor having you on this podcast today. Is there any last word of advice you want to leave the audience with today? Something that they can apply in their lives and see change in a positive way?
Okay. There's a quote that I love by Paulo Coelho. I'm going to say it in Spanish. Si deseas algo con todo tu corazón, el mundo conspira a ponerlo en tus manos. Which means if you wish something with your heart and with all of your passion, the universe conspires to put it in your hands.
Wow, that goes back to your manifestation, but
yeah,
I'm not gonna dive.
I'm telling you, manifest. Put that positive energy. Positive energy attracts positive energy. So.
Wow.
Yeah.
Man, it's been an honor once again, and thank you so much for taking the time to shine your perspective and your challenges, your life experience on this podcast. And I really hope it helps someone to be like you or better. And yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so
Marvin.
much. That was a really